Truth, Chapter 2. Ted Granville died. When I got to school on Monday morning, the first group of kids I see is talking about the murder, and the second group, and the third. By the time I reach my locker, I've heard everyone at the party was on acid, freaked out, and killed Ted Granville. Ted Granville came over with a gun to break up the party, and three guys beat him up in self defense. And Ted Granville went crazy, leapt off the second floor balcony, and broke his neck on the pavement of the driveway. As far as I can remember, Ian's house doesn't even have a balcony. My only reliable source is Georgia, whose mom knows Mrs. Granville. She's been at the Granville's house all weekend helping look after the two little kids. What have you heard? Georgia asks as soon as she sees me. I've heard a zillion rumors already, I tell her, but no one seems to know what really happened. As usual, Georgia looks like a movie star who gets trapped in high school by a mistake. Red hair perfectly in place, pierced belly button peeking out over her low cut jeans, just a faint of red rim around her eyes. She's obviously been crying, but when I cry, my face looks like it's been run over by a tractor. Life is totally unfair. She sniffs delicately. My mom says he died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Massive head injuries. Did you see the blood on the floor? She nods, making a face. I can still picture it if I close my eyes. What was he doing at the party? Mom said he was a family friend. Ian's parents had asked him to keep an eye on the house. Then the bell rings and there's no time for more details. In homeroom, we hear that our principal, Mr. Sorgrel, aka Snore Gel, called a school assembly. No big surprise. I'm just glad I'm not the one who has to cover assemblies for the school news show. They're usually one big snooze fest. A few years ago, one of the teachers got permission to run a student operated news and sports hour on the Fairfield cable station. It airs once a week, and the entire student population seems to tune in, maybe for the gossip factor. I worked on the show all last year. This year, I'm the lead reporter. My big stories so far are: is shoplifting on the rise? Joe Jobs, the good, the bad, and the cash? Expose, the day in the life of a Fairfield basketball star. The research for the last one was pretty fun, but Miss Chan, the sponsor teacher, says I need to start working on more serious stories. Dig for the truth, she said a few weeks ago. At the time, I thought the concept of the real news happening in Fairfield was pretty funny. Making my way through the hordes to the assembly, I see Jerome coming towards me. He's tall, just over 6 feet, and his hair is pale, pale blonde. He's easy to spot, not hard to look at either. When he first asked me out last spring, I was so excited. There was a perma grin stuck on my face for a week. Did the cops come to your house? At 3 in the morning, I tell him. I was dying to call you yesterday, but Dad decided it was father-daughter day, quality time. All long, long, boring day. Did they talk to you? Yeah, Mom freaked. What did you tell them? Basically nothing. You? Same. They weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer anyway. The cops here are either mean or stupid. You think so? Remember last year when Ross driving drunk and they tried to pull him over? He outran them for long enough to make a run for it. Then he called his grandmother from the payphone and told her some kid had just stolen the car. She believed him and the cops believed him, or at least they couldn't prove otherwise. By this time, we're in the gym and Snore Gel is at the mic. When he gets everyone quiet, he goes something like unmatched tragedy, condolence to the friends and family, police investigation, full cooperation. Jerome leans over partway through the speech. Listen, Ross is worried the cops are going to hassle him because of that fight last summer. You'll stay cool about it, right? Of course. When I think about it, Ross was at the party when I came in, but I don't remember seeing him after I saw the body. I was probably in shock. I try to remember who was with me in the bedroom. Candy had screamed all the way downstairs. Georgia ran up with me. Ian was there looking like a ghost. I guess having to explain a dead guy to your parents is a little worse than them finding out about your house party. Who else? Jerome, I know he was there. There were more, but everyone else is a bit of a blur. It was Nate who took control of the situation. He walked in, within seconds, the world was moving again. He sent Ian to phone 911 and told everyone else to clear out. That's what we did, fast. Listen, tell Georgia to stay cool too, okay? I nod absently. Officer Wells is at the microphone now. He's way taller than Snorgel and has trouble adjusting the microphone. He tries to stop towards it to look up the bleachers at the same time. He tells us how important any information will be in the first few days, how all tips will remain confidential, etc. It sounds suspiciously like my dad's customary weekend speech. If you ever need a ride home, just call. There will be no questions asked. Who believes that speech? Not even my dad, who's pretty laid back in general, can pull off that one. Georgia catches up to me in the hallway after the assembly. Listen, she says, I was talking to Nate and he asked if we could keep as cool as possible about this whole thing. Don't talk about it too much at school and stuff. I shrug. Sure, Jerome said the same thing. The rest of the morning is a write off. I drift through my classes until lunch. Then I remember I have a news team meeting. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is supremely cool and 1.5 is about as cool as the average teacher gets, Miss Chan is at least an 8. She's the sponsor teacher for our TV show Fair Game. The show runs on Fairfield's local cable channel every Friday after school. It's supposed to be like a news program, but with an anchor introducing different reporters on location. Usually there's one feature and a couple of short clips. Before she became a teacher, Miss Chan was a reporter in Ontario. I can totally picture her with a tape recorder in one hand and a microphone in the other, following a lawyer down the stairs of the courthouse to get a comment. She looks like she could be on TV too. She has bobbed black hair, nice clothes, heels that click, click across the lab. The media lab is actually an office at the back of Miss Chan's classroom. There are a few chairs and a couple of big tables and 2 computer desks where we do our video editing. At our Monday meeting, we divvy up assignments. This week, there are the usual sports updates, a profile on the new art teacher, and an expose on whether men's and women's razors are actually different. The main story is a special feature on the murder investigation. That one's mine. I sit for a minute after a meeting breaks up, organizing my thoughts. What would I most want to know if I was listening to the news? I'd want to know if Officer Wells was going to turn up at my house again. Maybe more about how they do a murder investigation. And the main thing, who was the murderer? That stops me. It's like I've been refusing to think about it since Saturday night. Now there's a giant question mark jumping at me from the notebook. Who killed Ted Granville? I was there. I should be able to figure it out. More than that, I should already know. Some people are always the last to know everything, but I am the first. Too much time on the phone and an overdeveloped sense of gossip, I guess. I love secrets. When George's mom was pregnant last year, can you imagine getting pregnant when you're 45? I was the only one other than Georgia who knew for 3 whole months. When that girl in grade 10 moved away, who was the first to find out that her neighbors thought her dad was in the KKK? Me. Even though it turned out to be a lie. That's all part of being a good journalist. I had to sniff out rumors and check the facts. So why don't I know this? By the time I finished wondering, everyone's gone except Scott Rich, our best cameraman operator. Miss Chan has assigned him to get some crime scene shots. Scott's unusual in our school. He's actually interesting. He's only in grade 11, but he seems like the sort of old philosopher that you'd find living in a mountain cave. He's got shoulder-length curly hair and he mostly wears in a ponytail. And it seems like he always has a video camera with him. He says he's an observer of humanity. I swear he's achieved a Zen state at the age 16. The other day, we were all hanging out at lunchtime in the courtyard of the school, and Georgia and Nate were arguing about what mellow music was. Melancholy was Georgia's answer. You mean sappy? My boyfriend dumped me songs? Nate said. That's not all. It's tempo. Then we saw Scott walking by the door, and they pulled him outside and into the debate. He tilted his head to the side for a second. Passive, he said and left. And everyone else sat there nodding. Anyways, it's always interesting to work on a story with Scott. On one hand, he makes me a bit nervous. I might not live up to his transcendental vision of the world. On the other, he sees things that I would otherwise miss. We arranged to walk over to Ian's house, the scene of the crime, after school. Scott can get some shots and I can grill any investigators that are hanging around. Lucky for me, the first police officer I see is Dave McBride. He plays tennis with my dad in the summers. He's just on his way to his car when we see him. I'm happy to find him outside because I really don't want to ring the doorbell and talk to Mr. and Mrs. Clausen. They can't possibly be in a good mood right now. Officer McBride, I call, and Scott follows behind us as I run up to the police car. Can you give me any info on the investigation? I'm covering the story for the school news. Hey, Jen, he greets me with a big smile. Don't know how much I can tell you. You should call the detachment and they can get you through to our press contact. And what will he tell me? Oh, general stuff. The victim is Ted Greenville, local banker, 43 years old, father of two elementary school kids. The force is dedicating its full attention to the investigation. And what does that mean? I ask. How exactly do you investigate? I thought there would be police all over the place, but you're the only one here. The more officers you have, the more likely someone will disturb the scene. I stopped by to make sure everything was secure, but there's an investigator inside finishing up the real work. And what's that? He photographs everything, makes notes of blood splatters and body position, looks for signs of the struggle, collects major evidence. Does any of it point to a killer? I hold my breath. Sorry, can't release that information to the press. Off the record, I say hopefully. I glance back at Scott. He takes the hint and wanders away, turning the camera toward the house. I really shouldn't be discussing it, he says, but I detect a hint of wavering. I think fast. Of course, I'd never tell anyone, but I watch all those cop shows on TV, and the way they collect their evidence is so amazing. Am I overdoing it? I hold my breath. It's an art form, Officer McBride agrees. Fascinating. Can you give me an example? My eyelashes have never been batted so quickly in their entire eyelash lives. Hypothetically, Officer McBride says, of course. Well, we might see a partial boot print in the blood at the scene. We can compare that to prints on file, find out that it's not a regular shoe. Really? Is that what happened here? You have to a distinctive print? I try to keep my excitement out of my voice. Officer McBride looks uncomfortable. I was speaking hypothetically, he says, and not a word of that to anyone. Scout's honor, I tell him, which doesn't count for much since I quit after 3 weeks of brownies. I grab Scott and prepare to scram, but just then a second officer comes out of the house and strides towards us. You kids looking for something? He asks. He's tall and thick, like a stereotypical cop. Beside him, Scott looks like a string bean. Just getting some footage for the school news show. He leans towards us. I hope you're not involved in any of this. We shake our heads in unison. I better not find out otherwise. Well, we smile as if he's joking, but he doesn't smile back. He turns and struts off towards Officer McBride's car. Power trip is Scott's assessment as we leave. When I get home, I've had enough of cops for the day. Still, I call the detachment and the receptionist faxes a press update to the machine in my dad's den. I start to skim through and it says almost exactly what Officer McBride said it would. Then something catches my eye. At present, the detachment is investigating the possibility that more than one assailant may have been involved in an attack.